Good afternoon, Learning Gate students. This is Mr. Jim, our next weekly installment of Nature from the Field. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how you can help the birds, our feathered friends. Some things you may know and others maybe you won't. So let's take a look and see a couple different ways you can help birds. Most people think the best thing you can do is actually put out bird seed and bird feeders. While that is good for some birds, not all birds eat bird seed. So there are actually most birds don't eat seeds. They eat insects and berries and other things like that. So certainly putting out bird feeders is good, but there's actually something else I wanted to talk about today. But let's take a look, see what kind of feeders I have. I just have a couple in my yard. We'll take a look here. So in our yard, we pretty much only have one feeder that has birdseed in it. The birdseed that we use is sunflower, black oil sunflower. Most of the birds that do eat seed like black oil sunflower. And this feeder that we have here is actually a squirrel-proof feeder. So if something heavy like a squirrel lands on this, they can't get at the seed. So this is geared for the smaller birds, but I have had blue jays, cardinals and things like that. They'll land on this little perch. They can get some seeds out of there, and then they'll fly off usually to a surrounding bush to open the seed and eat the meat of the seed inside. So that's one type of feeder that we have. Another thing that we have, let me show you. I've got another feeder that's special for a certain special kind of bird. See if you can figure out what it is. All right, so this bird feeder is for a special kind of bird called the hummingbird, and I just put it up last week. So we're in migration now, and I'm hoping that some of the hummingbirds that are migrating through will stop by and get a little bit of sugar water to carry them on their migration path. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it yet. Pretty much, as you can see, it's attracted all the honeybees. So they're having a grand time, but I'm hoping it won't discourage any hummingbirds that come by. So this is another type of feeder that you could put up if you'd like. But again, that's not what I want to focus on today. Today we're going to focus on what all birds need. Not just the birds that eat seeds or eat sugar water, and that has to do with water. All birds need water, just like all animals need water too. Now, as I just mentioned a little bit ago, most birds don't eat seed. They don't eat sugar water like the hummingbirds, but all animals, including birds, need to have water. So birds especially, not only to drink, but they also need to take care of their feathers. If they don't take a nice clean bath, just like you guys, they have to clean all their feathers and keep their feathers nice in good condition. If they can't get a bath pretty regularly, clean off their feathers, oil their feathers, then they can't fly very well. If they can't fly very well, then maybe Mr. Hawk is going to catch them. All right, so they need to have their feathers in tip-top condition so that they can fly and do what they need to do. All right, so let's take a look at two ways that you could provide water. One, an easy, pretty inexpensive way, and another, a lot more involved. So let's take a look and see what two methods you might want to try out in your yard. The one thing that's really important, if you can do it, if you can provide the sound of water, even if it's just a little bit of a drip, that really attracts the birds. So in our yard, we just put in this pondless waterfall. So we've got water moving down, all the way down to the bottom. And we didn't want to have a pond because that's where the mosquitoes breed. So you can see where the water goes at the end of the waterfall. And it actually goes under the rocks, through the rocks. And then there's a pipe underground that pipes the water back up to the top. And so the pump does that. So this is what's called a pondless waterfall. And we've seen lots of different birds using it already, mostly the bigger birds. So things like blue jays and grackles, and even we've seen the mockingbird and some doves using it. But we haven't seen the little birds use it yet. So for that, we have the less expensive, less involved method. Let's take a look at that. Now, most people, when you talk to them about providing water for birds, they think of, what do you think of? A bird bath, right? And a lot of people have bird baths, and those are great. But you might want to check your bird bath if you have one. Make sure that the birds are using it. You might not be getting the little birds, because if your bird bath is deep maybe over an inch deep, you won't get the little birds. So one thing you can do with your bird bath is you can actually add some gravel to the bottom. Make it a little less deep, and then the little birds will come in from the side, and they'll be able to take a bath and use it that way. So, you know, that's one way to do it. If you want to have a bird bath, that definitely is a good resource for the birds. But here's another thing that you can try. Take a look here, what we've done. Now, a really simple way you can provide water for birds is just take a dish or any kind of saucer, or even the bottom of a pot that you may have in your yard. In this case, we use just this little plastic dish, and I'll dump it out and show you what to do. See, it's just a dish. It's pretty shallow, and you don't have to put it on gravel like this. You want to make sure it's close to the ground. Some birds don't like to bathe or drink up high, like a bird bath might be. So if you can put it close to the ground, or even right on the ground, that's a good idea. You might want to make sure that it's close to some cover, some bushes like this. That way, if a hawk comes by, the birds can scatter. They can fly into the bushes and hide. So all you have to do with taking care of your dish of water is just, I would change the water every week. So if you let it sit for more than a week, maybe even 8 days to 10 days, you might be actually raising some mosquitoes, and you probably don't want mosquitoes in your yard because they're going to come looking for their meal, which is you. So I would dump out the water just like I did right there, and then you can just fill it up real easy, just like this. All I have to do, you can get out the hose, or you can bring out a jug of water from inside and just pour it out. And then keep an eye on your dish. Make sure if it's getting, it might be getting dirty. You know, sometimes the birds go to the bathroom. Heaven forbid they should do that, but sometimes they do. And sometimes you get algae growing in your water dish. So you might need to scrub it out a little bit, maybe with a little bleach, and just rinse it off real well, and then fill it up with some fresh water. And you'd be surprised. We put this out, and within an hour, or maybe 2 hours, we had birds taking a bath in it. And you wouldn't think, you know, this is just a little tiny dish. How do they find it? Well, they see it. Now, one thing that we're going to try with this dish, or maybe with another bird bath that we're going to try in the yard, is we're going to try something called a dripper. And you can actually hook it up to your hose, and it could actually drip water just a little bit at a time into the water. And see, just the movement of the water and the sound of the dripping water will attract the birds. So that's something that you could try if you want, but you don't need to. And again, keep it simple. You could even use the top off of a 5-gallon bucket, something like that. It holds very little water, but that's all they need. They'll come, they'll find it, they'll get a drink, even the little ones will take a bath. See, I'm almost filled up here. Looks like I'm ready to go. So, rub-a-dub-dub, blue jay in a tub. Now I thought you guys might enjoy seeing some of the birds that have come to our water feature and to the new little dish that we put out. So enjoy. Now it's your turn to put out a dish of water in your yard and see who comes to take a bath. Good luck, and let me know how it goes.